Hey Discovery Online, I'm so glad you're joining us today. If you're new here, please reach out in the chat. We'd love to connect you with someone and get to know you. This is so surreal, but I can finally say we have a week left until our grand opening party and services. This Saturday, the 27th, from 4 to 8 p.m. is our grand opening party. You don't want to miss it. We've got food trucks, games, live music, and you get to tour the new building. This is not a small party, it's a big one, and we need your help to prepare for it and be available to welcome new guests. In the chat or on our app, you'll find a link to sign up and help. You guys, I'm so pumped about sharing these announcements. This Sunday, the 28th, we get to celebrate all that God has done and is doing as we kick off our first grand opening services at 9 and 10:30 a.m. Be sure to invite your neighbors and friends. It's gonna be an exciting day. We get to see old and new faces. And this building is good news for our online community as well, because we'll have an actual space to engage our online campus. We hope to see you all soon. Let's focus in and turn up the sound and listen to the message today.
Well, what's up, Discovery Online? We are so glad you chose to spend this time with us today. And today, at our new home, it's our soft opening, and we have some special guests that we are celebrating. We just couldn't get all of them online. So before I jump into today's message, I just want to give a shout out to all of them. I want to thank all the OGs of Discovery, Tony and Stacy Salva, Brian and Kristen Gratton, Ethan and Debbie Harrington, and Greg and Devin Smedley. We wouldn't be here today if they hadn't followed God and started this amazing church family. Also the lead team of Discovery, who are some incredible godly leaders who have been seeking God's direction in this whole process. You have Victoria Coliani, Brad Rigby, Brad Wetzel, Chris Palo, Jared Antonio, Jonathan Hicks, and Christine Smith. Thank you so much to my band of brothers and sisters. Also, the staff of Discovery has been doing a lot of heavy lifting and spending long and late hours getting everything in place for our grand opening next weekend, and hey, we aren't done yet. So Todd and Sam Ransom, Kate Satori, Alex Scott, Travis Rogan, super proud of all of you and to be part of this team with all of you. A few others who have been serving the last year as relentless team leaders: Rodney Smith, Brian Gratton again, Paul Roush, Jody Brennan, Paul Murphy, Scott Faber, Owen Brown, and my amazing wife, Janie. Thank you so much. Hey, and the Solomon Foundation, who is a Christ-centered investment company who turns around and invests in churches and the kingdom of God. Thank you for believing in Discovery, for believing in us, Doug Crozier, Russell Johnson, and Bill Schakowsky. Thanks, guys, so much. Our amazing church design firm, Building God's Way, thank you for dreaming with us and designing such a spectacular space. Also, the team over at Weaver Commercial Construction, for handling all the details of getting the job done. Man, we appreciate you guys so much. And listen, finding our new church home has been quite the endeavor. It's been a long journey. Many of you know the journey better than I do. And we are so grateful for Rich Dallas, who was our realtor with Berkshire Hathaway. He was absolutely relentless for us. Hey, Rich, thank you so much. Jeremy Mercer, who is the church's attorney and helped us navigate through some really tricky waters, purchasing this facility and other tough situations. Man, Jeremy, you are such a selfless, Christ-like dude. Thank you for so much, for all that you've done for us and especially for him. And lastly, for all of you, A little over a year ago, many of us made relentless commitments to God. You didn't make those commitments to Discovery. You made them to God. And the money that we have in our hands, it isn't ours. It comes from God, and we committed above and beyond back to Him. So thank you for your generosity and the way that you continue to honor your commitments to God. A few months ago, I was praying about this day right here. I was asking God, what should our first messages be as we get ready to replant Discovery, have our grand opening? And actually, I didn't have to wait very long to get the answer. It was pretty clear. It really came down to what has been the heartbeat of this church from the very beginning. What has always been the heartbeat of Jesus? The classic author, Charles Dickens, he called the parable of the prodigal son the greatest short story of all time, and who am I to disagree with him? So today and next week at our grand opening, we're going to dig in to the story that we find Jesus telling in Luke 15. Now, most of us are probably somewhat familiar with this story. There is this father, and he has a son who does the most unimaginable, the most disrespectful thing. He demands his inheritance, like now. And the father gives it to him. And the son then takes it and says, "See ya, Pops." He runs from home to a faraway land, and there he blows it all on wild living until he has nothing left. He's homeless, he's hopeless. But finally, when he hits his rock bottom, he comes to his senses and he goes back home to offer himself up to become a servant in his father's house because, they live a whole heck of a lot better than he currently is. And Jesus is telling this story, and he shocks the crowd when he says, while the son was still a long way off, the father saw him and came sprinting toward him. He threw his arms around his son and embraced him in the anaconda choke. And it's not one of those tap out hugs. You know what I'm talking about? Those where the guy does the 3 taps on the back, which communicates, hey, this hug is now done. No way. The father won't let his son go. He began ordering his servants to put a robe on his back, put a ring on his finger, kill the fattest cow in the herd, because we are going to have a party tonight, because the son of mine that was lost has been found. He's come home. He's come back home. And the father in this story represents God, the Father. And this son represents each and every one of us before we became followers of Jesus and came back home to God. And this son right here is going to be our focal point next Sunday at our grand opening. But today, we're going to shine the spotlight on the other son, the older brother, who the first time we meet him in this story is when the party for the son who's come home is already in full swing. I mean, the bass is pumping, there's laughing and dancing inside the house. You can hear the clinking of the glasses and the silverware, but the older brother, he's not at the party. He's too busy pouting outside the party. And before we talk about the older brother, and his part in the story that Jesus is telling, I want to show you why Jesus is telling this story in the first place. At the beginning of Luke 15, this is what it says in verse 1. It says, "Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, 'This man welcomes sinners and eats with them.'" So these uber religious people were observing Jesus not just caring for the sinners, but that Jesus was hanging out with them, eating with them, which was a sign of acceptance, that Jesus accepted them just as they were. And so these churchy, religious people weren't even addressing Jesus directly. They're just kind of muttering to one another like, "This guy, look at him. He's eating with sinners. It's almost like he likes hanging out with them. And what churchy religious people need to realize is not only does Jesus love to hang out with sinners, it's the whole reason why he came from heaven to earth. He said in Matthew chapter 9, verse 12, healthy people don't need a doctor, sick people do. I have come to call not those who think that they're righteous, but those who know that they're sinners. And Jesus continues on with the story in Luke 15. In verse 25 says, meanwhile, the older son was in the fields working. When he returned home, he heard music and dancing in the house, and he asked one of the servants, what's going on in there? He said, your brother is back, and your father has killed the fattened calf. We're celebrating because of his safe return. The older brother was angry, and he wouldn't go in. His father came out and begged him, but he replied, all of these years I've slaved for you and never once refused to do a single thing you told me. And in all the time you never gave me even a young goat for a feast with my friends. Yet when this son of yours comes back after squandering money on prostitutes, you celebrate by killing the fattened calf? And the father said to him, look, dear son, you have always stayed by me. And everything I have is yours. We had to celebrate this happy day, for your brother was dead, has come back to life. He was lost, but now he's found. While the heart of the father couldn't contain his joy when the son who had run away came home, the older brother had a very different reaction. He wasn't quite ready to welcome his brother home. And this older brother mentality wasn't just in Jesus' day. It's alive and well today as well. Listen, I grew up in a small town in the state of Indiana, and I mean small. We're talking one stoplight kind of small. And my parents and one of my siblings and her family still live in that area. And most houses in that area, that town, are small, quaint little homes you could probably buy for about $80,000, if not maybe less, like this one. I grabbed this photo off of a realtor site online, and I grabbed this one in particular because of its location on Pennville Road. A few years ago, this house got a new neighbor across the street. That's right. This house was built across the street. This is a photo of this castle being built, and the construction trucks are gone, is being built, but the welcome signs, yeah, they're still there. As a matter of fact, what people in my neighborhood, my old stomping ground would do, when you got a new neighbor, you bake cookies. You bring them over to the house, and that's what they did. They walked across the street, they went up to this gate and pushed the buzzer with the speaker box, and here's what happened. A voice came on over that speaker box and says, what do you want? Can't you read the sign? No trespassers, go away. They said, we just came to bring you some cookies and welcome you to the neighborhood. The voice came on again and said, we'll not say it again. Read the signs, go away. And so they did. By the way, did you know that this very week Discovery got our new signs up this week? Our new exterior signs are up. Our internal wayfinding signage is going up as well to help people get where they want to go. But if we aren't careful, we ourselves can accidentally hold up, keep out signs to people who are far from God. We can become like the older brother and the religious leaders that Jesus told this story for. And if we aren't careful, we can block the way for people who need Jesus to come home and find Jesus. You know, Discovery has always been a church that is after the heart of God. And what is God's heart always about? His heart is always about those kids of His who aren't home yet. It's why Jesus told the story before this one about the shepherd who lost the one sheep, and the shepherd left the other 99 to find the one. It's why God sent His one and only Son to die for us and to take our punishment so that whoever believes in Him will not perish, but have eternal life. God's heart is always for His kids who aren't home yet. And so will our hearts. It's not about us. Jesus also said in verse 7, in the same way, there is more joy in heaven over one lost sinner who repents and returns to God than over 99 others who are righteous and haven't strayed away. So we want nothing to do with this sign. Nothing. Instead, here are a couple other signs that we want to convey to anyone who comes to Discovery. The first sign isn't really a sign at all. It's more of a gesture around these parts known as the Pittsburgh left. You know about the Pittsburgh left? It's something that Yinzers of this great city of ours know all about, but when I moved here about 3 years ago, I knew nothing about it. As a matter of fact, I experienced a Pittsburgh left before I knew what it was. I came to this busy intersection. I'm driving in my car where I needed to turn left, and I had a red light. It was a light that didn't have a turn left arrow, and there were several cars across the way stopped on the other side of the intersection in front of me. The light turned green, and I was prepared to wait until the cars in front of me crossed the intersection. But the first car on the other side didn't move. And I looked across the intersection, and he was doing this. He was doing this to me, and I was confused. Like, what? It's not my turn. You have the right of way. But he continued. He made the gesture. And so I kind of crept out very carefully into the intersection because I was afraid that I was going to get hit. But when I got halfway out, I just did a little wave of acknowledgement, thanks a lot, and continued on. I told someone later that day about it because I've never experienced anything like that anywhere else I've ever lived. And they said, oh, that's the Pittsburgh left. I said, what? And I had to Google it. And sure enough, it's a thing. Hey, Discovery, the Pittsburgh left is our thing too. Actually, it was Jesus' thing first. When He told us to treat others better than yourself, to put others first. So in our new parking lot, as you come to church or as you leave church, put away the gesture you learned at the Costco parking lot. Those people are getting vats of mayo. Here, they're getting something so much more valuable. They're getting the great news and the greatest news in the universe, and we want people who are lost and coming home to see that we have the same heart of the Father. The Pittsburgh left doesn't just happen in the parking lot, though. It can take place in all places. It can take place in the line for coffee. You first. It can happen when selecting your seat in the venue. You first. You know, instead of you taking the seats in the back, you take the seats in the very front row. Yes, the very front row. You first. Because guests who come for the first time are oftentimes running late because they're checking in their kids, they're running late on time, and we take the front rows to make it easy for them to find a seat when they come in, and they don't have to make the uncomfortable walk of shame to the very front. We all need to have the Pittsburgh left as a sign that we are communicating to people who are far from God. That means we have the same heart for the lost that the Father has. Here's one more sign that we need to convey to anyone who comes to Discovery. It's this one right here. It's welcome. Welcome home. You know, I mentioned a few weeks ago about a person who came for the very first time, and after service was over, we got to talking. And she said, hey, thank you so much for all of this. I was really nervous coming here for my first time. I'm a recovering Catholic, that's her words, and I've never been to a church like this before. And so I didn't know really what to expect, but everyone has been so friendly. Everybody's been so welcoming. She said, it just felt like I belonged. You know, that's how you should feel when you come home. You just belong. Listen, there are a lot of people in our community, and maybe even some people I'm talking to right now who have forgotten how good their Heavenly Father is. The older brother in this story certainly did. Even though he stayed home, even though he never ran off to take part in some major rebellious acts, he still missed what his father was all about. He told his dad, man, I've been slaving for you for years. I do everything you command me to do, but you never even gave me a goat to have my own party with. Slaving and partyless. That sounds an awful lot like religion to me. Religion is all about, I've got to do all these things to make God like me, to earn God's love. The older brother who stayed home, the best I can rationalize is he got to thinking how much he's missing out there. That the life that his brother was living was better than what he was experiencing. Listen, if you're a believer in Jesus and you think that you are missing out on what everyone else is experiencing, like if I wasn't a Christian, I would get to keep all the money that I give. I could just chase after all the pleasures of life. I'd get an hour back every weekend. I wouldn't have to change diapers and Discovery Kids. I wouldn't have to be in that small group. I wouldn't have to stand in the parking lot and direct traffic. If you're guilty of thinking like the older brother, it just means you've forgotten how good the Father really is. And the ironic thing is, all the time the older brother was thinking about his younger brother out there with the prostitutes and having this great wild life, in reality, his brother was starving to death, living in the mud with the pigs and wishing he had never left. You know, no one ever said following Jesus was easy. No one ever said picking up your cross and following Jesus was simple. But man, it's so worth it. The kingdom of God is already here. And if you don't get that, you don't fully know how good your dad is. You're already at the party. But you got to come inside and you got to enjoy it. You know, Jesus told the story of the father leaving the party to talk to his oldest boy. His father said to him, look, dear son, you've stayed with me, and everything I have, it's already yours. And in all three stories that Jesus told in Luke 15, the story of the lost sheep, the lost coin, the lost son, there's a common thread that goes through all of them. There's something valuable lost, there's a search for it, and when it's found, there's a party. Jesus said, there is a celebration in heaven when one person who was far from God comes back home. In Discovery, we want to be a part of throwing as many of those parties down here on earth. It's who we've always been and who we will always be. We can't lose our focus on that. And why next weekend at grand opening, and Easter weekend the following week, and beyond that, it's just so critical. I want to close with another story. It's a modern day parable. It's called the parable of the life-saving station. That on a dangerous seacoast where shipwrecks often occur, there was once a crude little life-saving station. The building was just a hut, and there was only one boat. But the few who were devoted members kept a constant watch over the sea and with no thought for themselves. They went out day and night, tirelessly searching for the lost. Many lives were saved by this wonderful little station so that it became famous. Some of those who were saved and various others in the surrounding areas, they wanted to become associated with the station and give of their time and money and effort for the support of its important work. New boats were bought and new crews were trained, and this little life-saving station grew. Some of the new members of the life-saving station were unhappy that the building was so crude and so poorly equipped. They felt that a more comfortable place should be provided as the first refuge of those saved from the sea. So they replaced the emergency cots with comfortable beds. They put in better furniture and enlarged the building. So now the life-saving station became a popular gathering place for its members. And they redecorated it beautifully and exquisitely furnished it as a sort of a club. Less of the members were now interested in going to sea on life-saving missions, so they hired lifeboat crews to do the work. The mission of life-saving was still given lip service, but most were too busy or lacked the necessary commitment to take part in the life-saving activities personally. It was about this time that a large ship was wrecked off the coast, and the hired crews brought in boatloads of cold and wet and half-drowned people. They were dirty, they were sick, and some of them had different color skin, and some spoke a different language, and the beautiful new club was considerably messed up. So the property committee immediately had a shower house built outside the club where victims of shipwrecks could be cleaned up before coming inside. At the next meeting, there was a split in the club membership, and most of the members wanted to stop the club's life-saving activities as being unpleasant and a hindrance to the normal life pattern of the club. But there were some members insisted that life-saving was their primary purpose and pointed out that they were still called a life-saving station. But they were voted down. They were told that if they wanted to save the lives of all the various kinds of people who were shipwrecked in those waters, that they could begin their own life-saving station down the coast. So that's what they did. As the years went by, that new station experienced the same changes that occurred in the old. They also evolved into a club, and yet another life-saving station was founded. And if you visit the seacoast today, you will find a number of exclusive clubs along that shore. Shipwrecks are still frequent in those waters, only now most of the people drown. Discovery? Sure. Our new home used to be a family fun center and has 36 holes of really nice mini golf. And yes, it has a children's indoor playground and a state-of-the-art sound and lights and a cafe. It's a great place to call home. But let's not forget that more than anything, it's a hospital for the spiritually sick and a life-saving station for those who are far from God. So I have some good news and some even better news for you. The good news is we are in. We're in. But the even better news, it's time for us to get out. It's time for us to get out.
We serve a really good God, and He cares so deeply for us and is always with us. Maybe you've been doing life with God for a long time or a short time, and you're questioning His goodness. I just want to encourage you to talk to someone about that, whether it's God Himself or a friend who has a relationship with Him. Can you imagine what would have happened if the older brother would have kept those feelings inside? His jealousy would have consumed him. And don't be ashamed about the way that you feel. God can take it and He can walk you through it. Don't bottle it up and let it stunt your growth. As we take communion together, let's remember how God sent His only Son to take on the sin of man and resurrected Him so that we could share in this new life. Whatever storm you find yourself in, He can calm it. And whatever shipwreck is surrounding you, He can make it new. I can say this from my own experience. Let's celebrate His goodness as we sing together.
Well, today we're going to sing a new song, and it speaks just so well and so clearly to the season that we are in right now as a church. Song talks about the seasons that God takes us through, and that with each season, no matter what it looks like, that they keep on getting better. And at Discovery right now, we are a week away from grand opening. I would imagine that you all are cheering in your homes right now, just thinking of that a week from now, our doors will be fully open and fully expectant of what God is going to do in this place. And I just hope that you take this time as we sing this song. The words will be on the screen, but I also encourage you to sit and to reflect about all of the seasons God has taken you through being at Discovery and also just in your life. And just thanking Him for always being good to us. And that looks different in every season. But no matter what, He keeps on getting better. He is present and He is faithful. So I invite you to sing that with us. I'll sing of goodness, I'll sing of your love. Though the seasons come quick, you have always been enough. Though the night may be dark, though the waiting seems long, you have always been faithful to remind me of your love. You are good. In the morning I say you are good. In the evening I say you are good. You are good to me. Yeah. You have always been patient. You have